So welcome to our ASQ Innovation Technical Communities January 2023 kickoff with Miss Luciana Paulise. You are in for a treat because she is going to be speaking with us today about how a we culture can drive innovation. Not only is she a phenomenal business consultant, business leader, she is an author, she is a writes blogs, and she is a culture coach. So anything that you want to know about culture, leadership, innovation, and the intersections about how to optimize your organization's teams or your offerings, you're going to want to pay great attention to Luciana's words today so that she can share with you all of her knowledge over the last decades. She is the CEO of the We Culture LLC, and she helps companies and individuals identify and address barriers to becoming their best selves. And she offers this through one-on-one coaching and consulting. Her bio is on our ASQ Innovation TC events page, and I'll share that out with all of our attendees afterwards so that you will able to connect with her and follow up afterwards. So again, welcome to our January 2023 ASQ Innovation TC offering. And now we will kick this off with Luciana. Give me just a moment to prepare her as our panelist, and we will be right with you.
Thank you very much, Rhonda. It's my pleasure to be here today with the Innovation Division, which is a division I really love. I know so many of you, so many of the ones that are every day leading this division. So I'm excited to be here today.
You should have your prompt, ma'am, with regard to being able to share your screen.
Okay.
And once you get that cued, we will kick off our interview.
All right. So, like I said, Rhonda, I will share some slides, but really I don't want this to make it just about the presentation, but I like to see what are your questions and what are the questions from the people so that we can make this as much interactive as possible. Would that be okay?
That is absolutely perfect. So let's kick this off with our first interview question. So again, team on the line for all of our attendees, I welcome you to engage and interact with our phenomenal speaker today. Any question is fair game with regard to it falling into her category of work. So we invite you to submit any questions, comments, or areas that you would like Luciana to discuss in our chat, and I'll monitor the chat and work with Luciana to monitor those. Okay, first and foremost, Luciana, is our first question out of the gate is you are a very accomplished CEO and quality practitioner. Could you share with our audience, for those that may not know you, understand your journey, how have you gotten to where you are today, both as a CEO and along your innovation and leadership journey, please?
Well, thank you very much for asking that. It's a very interesting question because my journey is very different, I think, across the years, and also includes moving from one country to the other. So if there's anyone in the audience that is new to the US or is new to the country where they're living in, you know, this may help them. So basically, well, my career started as I, just went out of college. I started studying business management and started working in big corporations. And then, when I was working there more like as an accountant or an analyst, I kind of started being interested about leadership and also about continuous improvement, right? I was seeing a lot of processes that were not working fine, that I think were taking longer than usual. So, or longer than what you think, they should take. So I was always trying in every job I had, was always trying to look for ways to improve that, to make it faster so that I didn't get bored, right? And then, like I said, I always also was worried about how like, sometimes I felt like I was frustrated and I couldn't talk to my supervisor about it, or I was seeing other employees, complain about the company and not having a very good way to disclose of that and really take it as a way to improve the company, right? Instead of just keeping it to themselves. So that's how over time I got the certified quality engineer. Then I did an MBA and got more and more involved in what was going on in companies beyond the actual the work that we were doing, the operations. So that's how finally I decided to leave the company I was working for, and I started my own consulting business. So I started my own consulting business, and all this in Argentina, where I was born. Then, as a consultant, I worked several years in Argentina. I was offered to start writing my first book, so I did. My first book is SOS Pymes, and it's a book about how to implement the Deming principles to small businesses, and it was especially for Latin American businesses, right? It's in Spanish. So it was very interesting. All I learned. I went to the Deming Library of Congress to find out all the books that he had written, but also the manuscripts, all the things that he had found out. So to try to find more things that the books were saying, right? To try to find more details about how I could help small businesses, and I started implementing that, like I said, in Argentina as a consultant. And then, over time, I decided, well, I'd like to move to the US to learn more, to kind of try to see how companies in the US were working and try to, move in that direction. So that's how 5 years ago, I moved to the US. I also brought my company here and started working as a consultant here. And when I moved here, I got very much involved with the ASQ. Starting participating more because when you are like in Argentina, there were many opportunities for me to be involved with ASQ. Fortunately, when I moved, I was able to join sections, to join more events, and then I started getting more involved into implementing 5S, the 5S method. I got kind of an expert in that. I even wrote a book on 5S, and then over time, like I was saying, I started to see more, different things, right, that were happening in companies, even though we were seeing that I had a team working with me and we're implementing the same kind of methods. Still, different companies have different ways to implement that. And sometimes it was very hard. Sometimes leaders were trying to take the lead, right, to implement 5S, but 5S was more about the employees working directly, right, providing ideas for improvement. So I realized how important it was to understand the culture of the company and how that impacted how they would implement quality methods or any changes, even innovation, especially, right? Some companies were not really prone to innovation because of the culture that they had, because of some behaviors that were ingrained in all the employees, especially from the leaders and the managers that were mimicking those behaviors. So that's how I started to get more into culture, and that's when the pandemic hit, and when I really saw like, oh, there's a big change in the need for culture, right? Because before, like I was investigating that, I was researching that, but people didn't seem very much interested in culture. Like it was nothing they would care about really. until the pandemic hit. And then I don't know if you noticed that, maybe Rhonda or someone in the audience can see that, but these last 3 years, like the work culture started to hit much more the Google, the Google sites, right? Would you agree with that?
I love it. So yes, our next question in the interview was why we culture and why now? And you did this perfect segue about really the COVID-19 crisis being this linchpin event for global change, right? And really, how do we as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business leaders, organizations, especially when we're globally intertwined through these areas of innovation and quality, really handle that? How do we respond in a way that allows us to leapfrog where we were and capitalize on our digital transformation opportunities?
Yeah,
Luciana.
exactly. Yeah, it was a big change. The pandemic really hit everyone and every heart and every company, because it kind of tested how companies were really agile or not to adapt to changes, how employees were resilient enough to adapt to moving from an office to working from home. And that brought a lot of changes, really, because people started to think more about themselves, about how to take care of themselves. They were more not so much connected like before. They were more working on their own. So that a lot of people started to be more on their minds, right? So that's why we had a lot of increase in people getting stressed. Like if you would after 2021, if you would ask someone how stressed they were the day before, 43% they were very stressed, right? Also, there's we I think we all know that the quiet quitting rates, like these last 2 years, like 50% of the people are said that they are not engaged or they are really quiet quitting, and we only see 21% of employees engaged. Imagine that. Out of your workplace, only 21% are really engaged, meaning that they will try to innovate or they will try to provide ideas for improvement, while the others maybe they are just working, doing their minimum or doing their job, but they are not really bringing new ideas. So imagine how this is really impacting companies, right? But this is how the cultures were impacted. And imagine like at the very beginning you could see some employees joining companies remotely. Well, that was okay, right? You just start working, you don't see anyone. But after 3 years, if you still don't see anyone, or if you never meet your coworkers, that's a big change, because the main problem here is that culture is learned through observation, through interacting with other people, right? You can interact through email, you can interact through Zoom, you can interact face to face, right? But when you are in the office, the interaction is 8 hours. Through 8 hours you are interacting with different type of people. Now, when you're working remotely, maybe you interact with people, in a couple of emails, or maybe you interact with one meeting a week, or likely one meeting a day, sometimes more. Sometimes you have meetings all every time, and that helps a lot to get the culture of the company. But if at the very beginning you don't have many meetings, really, it's really hard for you to get the culture of the company. So that was the problem for companies, because they started to realize that people were not feeling comfortable. They were getting more stressed. They were getting disengaged because they were not able to understand the culture of the company, because they were not there. So that's how companies are starting to realize, hey, culture is important, and we need to define it very clearly and communicate it a lot, so that even remote employees can see what is it that we expect from them. I don't know if that makes sense.
It
It's
does. Yes. And
mhm,
so, given this COVID pivot, you on your journey, maturing both as a leader and an entrepreneur,
mhm,
both started a company, the Why We Culture, and you wrote a book about
mhm.
this topic. how did you get from the chaos of COVID-19 into this ideation about starting up a new company and writing a book on this topic? What drove you? What was the forcing functions forward for you to start up that specialized initiative and then really want to take on this topic at a different a deeper level?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Rhonda. And really, what happened is that I was most of my work was implementing 5S in companies, right? So when the pandemic started, I basically lost all my clients. Right? At that time, it was well, right now I don't know anything. I don't know what to do. Right, I'm a very very busy person, so I was really lost at home. So I just couldn't wait for a minute. Like the first day the pandemic hit and all the airports were closed. I was supposed to travel to Europe, but I had to cancel that, and so I had no plans for the next 2 weeks. Right, so I immediately said, okay, I'm gonna start a podcast. I'm gonna start, doing my YouTube channel. So I started doing some videos, and some of the things that I just first occurred in my mind were to kind of start writing more. So I started to look for websites or places where I could write, and also I thought, well, there's a lot of things that will change with the pandemic. So what if I start asking companies what are they doing to to deal with this, right? So I looked for a list of them. I think at that time, like in April, there was a list of the companies that were preferred by employees or something like that. So I said, okay, let's contact these companies, which are usually the best engaging employees. So let's see what they are doing, right? So there were two things there. Finally, I got chosen by Forbes to write. So that's how I said, okay, if I can tell, some interviewees that I'm writing for Forbes and I will publish their interview there, they will like to do that. So I started interviewing all these people. I got all those interviews on YouTube. I got all the interviews on Forbes, and I learned a lot. And I learned a lot about how these companies were dealing before COVID, how these companies were dealing after COVID, what changes they were doing, what things were important to them. And that's how I said, and that's how everyone started to talk more about culture and employee engagement. And I said, yes. So there has to be a book about this. I cannot just keep this with me. And and what happened is that this all resonated with all other ideas that I have been reading in the past, right? So I have developed We Culture right before that. I even have had done an app for people to access to class and training material that was called We Culture right before COVID. But again, it was not maybe the right time, right? But even kind of when I went to Demi meetings, right, like in 2016, 2017, there was a lot about we culture, because it was kind of what Deming was saying from the very beginning, right? In the 1940s and 1950s, like help the people say what they need to work better. How can we as leaders not just tell them what to do, but facilitate so that they kind of can propose, can make decisions and things like that. So that's kind of was the we culture that I have in my mind, and I said, now it's the perfect timing to talk about this and to provide examples for companies to do something different and overcome the pandemic in a different way. So that's how it started.
Yes, so completely understand. So for those of the attendees who might not be familiar with all of the elements of a we culture or a me culture, could you outline for us, what constitutes a me culture, what constitutes a we culture, and how are leaders in organizations really needing to change the dialogue, change their methods, change their engagement, collaboration, and communication methods to really achieve this we culture state?
Yes. So we culture is basically, I compare to what is a me culture, right? So a we culture is a culture where we care not just about ourselves, but we care about and we always talk about we, not just me, right? I don't talk about, oh, I do this, but we do this, right? So I care about, or we care about the um, the coworkers. We care about our leaders. We care about our community. We care about our clients. So every time we work and everything we do, we care about as much as we can everything that we have around us. And this is something that maybe you can even see when you implement 5S, right? I remember that one of the things I would teach is that you, when you do 5S, you care about your things, you care about your tools, you care about the table, you care about the floor, you just don't care about people only, right? So this care method is about caring about everything that you have around you. So how do you accomplish that? Is that so kind of difficult, so naive? Well, it's actually not, because I found out that there were 12 skills that were helping people to care more about the environment and the company and where they work for. And these 12 skills were kind of part of 4 dimensions. So there are 3 skills for each of these dimensions: the dimension of connection, the dimension of attention, the dimension of respect, and the dimension of empowerment. And what I see is that just like we as human beings, we have kind of, you know, the intuition. We have one part of us that it's more the brain, or kind of the rational part of ourselves. Then we have the emotional part of ourselves, and then the action part of ourselves. Some of us are more action oriented, like me. Some are more emotions oriented. Some are more rational oriented. Some are more ideas oriented. So all this care has to do with that, has to do with understanding there are different parts of the company that is also just like an individual. The company also has those aspects. So there are some companies that are more focused on actions. There are some companies that are more focused on ideas. There are some companies that are more focused on being very rational, very quality oriented, right? So I thought that there were these 4 dimensions that were important for every company, and that there were skills that each company could develop if you would like to become, for instance, more innovative. So if you want to become more innovative, you have to develop more the connection dimension. So what is this different from what we're doing right now in many companies, if not most companies nowadays, right? That, for instance, most companies are working in silos, right? Working with a short-term focus, even though they have like 10 years or 20 years plan. Everyone is just trying to see how they can be better, so they can be in the ranking that the company has, right? But this is not the people in the company doing something wrong, but the rules of the company are damaging the connection with the people, because they are depending on the methods, or depending on the rules that you define, that the connection will be okay, or will not be so okay. So there's what I'm always saying is that in order for you to build a weak culture, is not that you are going to send an email saying, okay, these are the care skills, these are the care dimensions, and that's how you're going to do it. But you have to build systems so that this works. Okay, so you have to build systems so that people don't work in silos, right? Many companies over time have moved, for instance, so that you can see it very, very visually, from office that were very close, and everyone has their own place to work, very separated from everyone else. And then most companies started to build all these open offices, right? So that's part of improving the connection. But then then the pandemic hit, right? So there are also many things that you have to do internally to just create connection, not only by bringing people together, by finding other ways to bring connection, and bring connection to the purpose of the company. Other things, for instance, in attention, which is attention to details, attention to numbers. A lot of companies are very focused on that. What are the results? How do we get there? And they are not focused so much on the people, right? On what the people need to do to get there. So one of the aspects of the we culture is paying attention to what the people are doing and trying to give them power to them. Sometimes, so that we can get better numbers, we try to give leaders the power to make decisions so that they make better decisions. But in the we culture, we think it's the other way around. We think that when we give power to the people, they can make better decisions, and they can make faster decisions. And all these things, faster decision making is what makes companies better to work in a fast environment or a changing environment, like right now. After the pandemic, we're seeing so many changes, right? So what we're seeing is that a we culture, it helps companies overcome better all these challenges in a fast changing environment.
Well, I love it. I love that you've shared with us the 4 care practices that really drive a we culture, and you discussed the leadership characteristics that we need to embody to really put these into practice. You mentioned to me earlier during one of our discussions that only a we culture can help leaders and team members thrive, especially in a changing environment. I know you've outlined 4 care practices, but why do you feel that these are the key things to helping organizations and people thrive? What else do we potentially need to be thinking about as we roll a we culture out and implement it within our organizations and communities?
Yeah, yes. Part of that is kind of what I just said. For instance, that if you keep, I guess as a leader, you keep decision making, right? You don't give decision making to the people, then your company gets slower to act, right? Just the same way is the same with all these dimensions. With connection happens the same thing with respect, with empowerment. For instance, in connection, right? If you want to innovate more, what's the best way that you can innovate more? Do you expect to have another Steve Jobs in your company, just to have one person to find out these great ideas? Or would it be better if you make connections around all the team members and across teams, so that you can help everyone, try to innovate and try to bring ideas? But it's all connected. All these dimensions are connected, right? So that you can get all these ideas out there. People need to feel respected, for instance, right? So this is the respect dimension. If people don't feel safe to offer ideas or to propose changes or to say, hey, there's something wrong here, or I made the mistake. If people don't feel respected or don't feel like they can do that, then you will not have innovation. These people will not talk. They will just say what you expect them to say. Okay. So there are many practices that companies are doing, for instance, to prevent that from happening. There are some companies where are saying, well, in our meetings, I don't want to have, at least for the first 40 minutes that we have this discussion, I don't want to have the executives, so that people are not biased by their decisions, right? So they can make decisions, and then when they come in, which are the hypos, right, the high potentials or the executives, they can discuss together. But first there was a real discussion, not feeling bad about asking or complaining something in front of the executive, right? But this happens everywhere. Like, for instance, there's an interesting research in psychological safety that was saying that some nurses in hospitals, some were afraid to say that there was something wrong with the patient or there was a mistake in the medication. And as they were afraid to say that, they were afraid that the doctor would kick them out or will not let them talk anymore. So they wouldn't say that, right? So that was part of lack of psychological safety. So what would you imagine is the result of that? Maybe, like I was saying before, maybe numbers are saying, oh, we have less mistakes in this group, because then no one is we have less mistakes. But what's the reason why we have less mistakes in this group? Is because they're working better, or is because they're not reporting them? So this is a great question, right? What do you want your company to be? The one that is having less mistakes, or the one that is not reporting the mistakes because your employees are afraid? So what we're trying to say with the weak culture is that we want that, right? We want employees to be able to speak out. That's how you will provide change, but you also have to provide empowerment to that. Yes, go ahead, Rhonda.
I think you're bringing to light, yes, I think you're bringing to light these phenomenal things, right? So I think a lot of research is being done now in the quality and innovation areas about the tension that moving too far to the left on psychological safety may actually decrease innovation, right? So if we're supposed to be looking at respect for the innovation, respect for the individual, empowerment, other engagement, other types of constructs that we're putting in to raise our cultural level, innovation is also at its core about thinking differently, right? And that takes a different type of skill, one where we may actually be inserting conflict at some point because of this diametric disparity in perspective and view and approaches, because innovation is about thinking about different thinking about things differently, either parallel thinking or approaching it in a novel way that the organization, team, or leader may not be familiar with. And so, from your experience, how do we delicately balance the need for psychological safety in a we culture and create this environment where we can have these, in some cases, diametrically opposed perspectives that really help lead to exponentially greater innovation? How do we manage that tension between the two?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rhonda. And I wouldn't say there's a tension. I would say that it's it's a positive tension, because actually when people feel safe to speak up, they will be more innovative, right? But like you said, innovation comes from all these different perspectives. So respect is the root where you will find all these different perspectives. So for instance, one of the things that are being said is that it's great that teams are now formed by people from different backgrounds, right? So like in the past, we would say, okay, I want to have a group of accountants. Or I want to have a group of engineers, right? Or I want to have all people that are white, or on the other side, I hate all people that are black or Latin, like separate people so that they can get along better. But like you said, conflict is key, right? Because when we have people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, or different industries, they work together. Yeah, at first they will have kind of these discussions, this conflict, but over time, if you have respect as a value, right, as a value of the company, then you will see, well, maybe this person has a different point of view, but maybe it's interesting to see what they have to say, right? And how they see this in a different way, and how, wow, that's how we can drive real innovations, right? In the past, a lot of women were not brought to test, product test. And then they were realizing that, well, many products are actually bought by women. So why don't we bring women to the test, right? Or to bring ideas on how to make these products better. And that's how products, started to be more made so that women can buy them, or are more attracted to them, or they use them better, right? So it's all about when you respect and you realize that, wow, it's great to have different people, different perspective. It's not bad, right? It's great. You embrace that. That's how you will really start to listen to other people, other ideas, start to see why they're thinking that. And that's how you will bring innovation. So I think that by listening others and trying to to see, that everyone could have something interesting to say. That's how you can bridge respect, psychological safety, and innovation to drive really good results for the company.
That is perfect. Thank you so much. Kind of pulling the thread on that, Luciana, you had
Yeah.
mentioned that in our prior discussion that there's really three core skills that you feel drive innovation. The we culture is basically an enabler and an enhancer of that. Could you speak to these three core skills that you are so passionate about in this innovation field?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, basically in my wood culture book, I described 12 skills. So those are for developing all these four dimensions, but in particular for the first dimension, the dimension of connection, which again is the dimension of the ideas, right? Let me put this here so you can see connection has to do with, bringing innovation, the dimension of ideas. So there are three main skills here to develop. So the first one has to do with defining and sharing and communicating the purpose of the company and the values, right? So even though this is something that you can say, yeah, my company shares the purpose, my company has the mission statement, my company has 10, 12 values that are written on the walls, then what happens is that some of these things are not really well known by the employees. They are just shared when they join the company, and they read one email once in a while, but that's about it. So one of a great skill that leader can have is make sure everyone in the group knows exactly what is the purpose of the company, what is their purpose in the team, connected to the purpose of the company, and what are the values of the company. So that way, you are enabling employees to make decisions better because they make decisions based on these values. For instance, you have a company that values customer engagement, right? Or values the customer. So, how you really implement that value in something that the employee can really see easily, right? So could be, okay, every time you see a customer, you need to smile. Or whatever the customer tells you, if they want a discount, you have to give them the discount. Or if you need to spend 3 hours on the phone to be able to have a happy customer, do that, right? So all these things tell you about how you connect the values to your day-to-day. But it's really important so that employees can say, okay, so how can I change the process, or how can I do something so that I can, get my customer happy. So I don't know if you have heard any of these stories of some hotels. I remember a hotel that a little baby, a girl had lost a little bear, and the employees of this hotel, apparently they knew exactly what was how important was the customer for the values of the company. So they started sending pictures about this bear, being in the pool at the hotel, or taking a nap at the bed, and then they send it to this person, right? So it was a way to say, yes, we have your bear, even though it was a bear of a little girl, right? It's not a lot of money, but for this girl was important. So it really made an impression for this person and this family about this hotel, right? But that's how a way to innovate. That's a way to innovate on a service, not just sending the bear back or just throwing it to the to the trash can. You do all these things that make your hotel unique. So that's kind of some ways of doing it. So that's what I said. The first skill is knowing and really sharing what are your purpose and what are your values, so that people can incorporate that in their decision making, in how they innovate and how they engage. So the second one has to do with nourishing your network. Because like I said, connection is very important. It's very important how you get connected to everyone, not only in your team, but with your managers, with your other teams, with your community so that you can drive more ideas for improvement. Okay, so it's very important, even if you work remotely, you try to nourish your network. That means connect back to them, try to see who is important in your network, who do you want to talk more often, who do you want to meet often to get ideas or to find new ways to develop your products or study your products or improve your processes. It's about really trying to see who you want close to you and how you want to develop, and who you want maybe more far away and you don't have to meet that often, but doing in an intentional way. Okay, so it's very important. Connection is part of the human being, right? That's why there were so many mental issues when we had the pandemic, because people were feeling disconnected, right? So connection is so important, and the main way to do it is by building your own tribe. And I say this especially for the ones that are work hybrid or maybe work remotely. Try to find maybe a smaller tribe, a smaller group of people that you can reach out, but make stronger connections with them. Talk to them often. Tell them how you feel. Listen to them, and that's the way how you're gonna get more innovation and get closer to get better at what you're doing. So the third one had to do with normalizing change, and this is really key, because what we're seeing again is that change, correct me if I'm wrong, but change now is the constant, right? We're seeing that change now is more often. In the past, we will have a new product every 2 years. Now we have a new product every 2 days, right? You have updates on your phone all the time. Now even you have updates on your car. If you have a Tesla, maybe you have a new software, and you don't even have to go to the place where you bought the car. You just got there on an email or whatever, right? You just push up and it gets there. So you have to normalize change. And a lot of companies are having a lot of problems with that because they are very much structured. Their hierarchies are very clear. They, the employees from the base of the pyramid are very far away from the executives. The executives are very far away from customers. They are only, close to customers just because of reports. So that makes these companies very, very, difficult to adapt, to change fast. So that's what we were saying. Some of the things that were important is that we could give more tools to the employees to make decisions, to listen to the customer, and be able to implement those things right away. Because if they had to wait for the executive to approve that, right, then whenever you implement the change, the customer is already gone. So normalizing change is part of accepting changes, like part of the normal thing, part of our life. And I'm dealing with this with a lot of coaches that I have right now. Some of them are calling me because they've been laid off, and maybe they are not laid off, but some of their coworkers are, and they don't know how to deal with this. They're not seeing these coworkers anymore, or they have to rearrange their teams. And they're kind of scared about that. But what we discussed kind of is, well, this is how the industry will be from now on. Even though right now we're in a crisis, this is how things will be from now on. So how can we deal with this in a different way? Kind of accept that things change, that you will have to change things maybe more often, that you will have to change processes more often, and that we just have to accept it and move on, and do not kind of attach to a specific result or attach to a specific group. Just be flexible, and that's kind of what is going to bring innovation, right? If we are very scared of change, or we are attached to a result, it's very hard for us to think of new ways, right? But if we kind of let go and we see we are closer to the changes and what the customers are looking for, then it's easier for you to be able to innovate, and bring some more change. So those are kind of the three skills.
Thank you. This is perfect, right? So we have our very deep 4 care practices. We have our 3 core skills. And then we have this really the impetus behind in COVID-19 and this change to new modern types of leadership in support of higher quality and innovation. One of the things our attendees may be interested in is understanding, from your perspective, who or which companies and or which leaders have already made the switch or move to adopting this we culture? And could you give us some examples of what they've been able to achieve given that transformation?
Great, that's a great question. What I can show you, I will let me see if I can show you this slide. So this is a nice slide that can show you, what are the benefits of changing the culture, right? And you'll see, I'm sorry, based on this, what I call a virtual cycle, you'll see how many of the companies that have implemented some of these things. Some not, but maybe some of them have implemented it, right? So what I said before is about like the me culture is very focused on numbers, not on people. That it drives like focused on numbers and focused on very targets and things that are very very structured are not aligned to a changing environment. So that drives a lot of stress, a lot of depression, drives disengagement, and all these drives, of course, more turnover, more mistakes because people change all the time, or they are not willing to change, they are disengaged. Of course, all these drives more cost, HR costs, like hiring and all these things, right? But in our culture, one of the things that we see a lot is employees that are happy, that are really engaged. And I've seen many companies that are working on this. For instance, there's an Argentinian company that now has grown and has more than 25,000 employees. It's global, and this company is very focused on having connections for their employees. So even though it's a global company and they have employees everywhere, they have built a system so that employees can connect to each other easily. They have like points so that whenever you see an employee, in a meeting doing a great job, you can just point that out and give them some, bonus for that, and so that everyone can see that, right? Other things is that you can have kind of, it's like a Tinder, for employees, but not, to form a romantic relationship, but just to meet people. So you can say, I have this interest, I know coding, or I know innovation, or I know quality, and you can meet randomly with people that have those same interests, right? This company also has inverted their pyramid, and you can see this in my book. In We Culture, you can see tons of examples of different companies doing a lot of different things. Maybe not being We Culture companies, but doing some of these We Culture practices that I propose, right? So what this company did, they just inverted the hierarchies, and now their kind of their structure is very is very kind of small in a way, because they have their teams and then the executives right away, right? They don't have a lot of layers, so that helps communication to be faster, decision making to be faster. These groups have employees from different backgrounds, right? So we were talking about respect, about diversity. Yes, this company does that. In a group, they have engineers, they have salesmen, they have people from different backgrounds, so that they can decide quickly how to change something for a customer, or how to adapt that to a customer. And all these things make employees happier. So they have ways to measure employee engagement. So they can see if the employees are answering on Slack, or they are answering more emails, or they are accessing to certain parts of their website. And if they see that that some employees are not doing so much of that, it means that the employees start to get disengaged. So what they do, they start having discussions, one-on-one discussion with these employees, right? So they are doing a lot of things. They're creating an environment to really make employees happier, but also they understand that still employees can get frustrated somehow. So they have ways to track that. They have ways to track or to improve connection with leaders and employees. They have ways to drive diversity. They have people around the world working together in the same group, in different backgrounds. So you see how many of the things that I mentioned, they are already doing. Because really, if you read my book, you realize that it's not my ideas, right? My ideas are based on what companies are really doing and make sense with what I thought was the ideal company, right? But it all makes sense with companies that are really doing it. And this is not the only one. For instance, there's a nursing company in Europe, which is called Wordsorg, that they have, so their main goal is to have care for people that are disabled or they're old and they have to be in their homes. So instead of they going to a nursing home, these nurses go to their homes, right? So what they have is just they have maybe the president and a small team in trying to handle all the admin stuff, but then all the other groups are just group of nurses. So there is again no layers, right? So all this group of nurses, they hire their own employees if they need to. They define their own rules. They define their payments. So they make a lot of decisions for their teams. So these teams have grown a lot. Like this company started last time I heard they were having like 7,000 employees, but they're growing all around the world because these companies are more effective, right? So they're more effective, but so they have less cost, like I'm seeing in this virtual cycle. But the employees are also happier. They recommend it to other people. They want to bring their friends working to the company. So there's a lot of increase in profits with much less effort. So there are many examples, but
Yes. So as we transition to this last question before we wrap up with our upcoming ASQ events, Luciana, you've outlined really how organizations, be it a small entrepreneur, medium-sized, large-sized companies, can really realize the benefits and the outcomes and heightened outcomes and results by implementing a we culture. For those on the line, for those who want to maybe assess and plan and implement a we culture strategy, could you outline what they need to be thinking about as they're looking at enhancing their organizations?
Well, I would say that they have to focus on there are many skills, right? You cannot work on all the skills at the same time. So try to focus on what you want to develop first. Do you want to focus on employee engagement? Okay, so that's what you want. Maybe focus on the 3 skills that have to do with respect, with the dimension of respect, and try to see how you can improve the employee experience, improve diversity, have more sessions one-on-one with the employees and things like that, right? So in case you want to drive more innovation, focus on the first 3 dimensions. If you want to focus more on bringing quality, but through the people, not through focusing on the numbers, okay? So then focus on the dimension of attention. And if you want to, maybe improve time management or improve how people delegate and empower your employees, then you focus on these 3 skills. It's kind of maybe try to first find out what's the focus that where you want to start, and then start working on those skills. That will make it easier, and then you'll see how all the skills are connected. It's not that one thing doesn't have to do with the other. It will be easier. But start with that. Read if you want to read this because the book is divided in chapters, in the 12 chapters for each of these skills. So if you want to read these chapters, or if you there's a lot of references to a lot of books, so that you can get even more information about it. But also try to visit, try to see the companies that you like, the products that you buy and you like them. What are those companies and what are they? How are they? And how you want to be more like them. And last but not least, if you have a company and you have a team, ask your employees. Focus, again, define where you want to go, define your vision, your values, your purpose. But then ask your employees. You don't have to make this on your own. Just ask them, what do you think, how we can get there, get here from here, and working together in a we culture. That's the first step. um, Being collaborative, I would say. Listen to your clients, listen to your community, listen more, which is something that right now we have to do more. Most of the issues that we're having with mental health is because people don't feel heard. So as easy as that, practice listen more, and you'll start implementing the way culture right away.
Fantastic. Well, Luciana, thank you so much, both as an author, a speaker, a coach, and practitioner, for sharing your expertise, for really sharing with us your journey and all of this wisdom that you've gathered over the last decades, especially with the inflection of COVID-19 and all of the great progress that you've made in so many different areas of your life and all of the companies that you consult with. That is phenomenal.
Thank
The
you.
next thing we have is, yes, exactly. So thank you, Luciana. Luciana has just so great. We are so grateful for her contributions. She is offering each of you that's on the line today, if you go to www.theweculture.com, put in the code ASQ Innovation. The first 5 visitors get a free copy of Luciana's book. Again, that's www.theweculture.com with the code ASQ Innovation. And the first 5 books are free. I'm going
Yes.
to move.
Sorry, what
Go
you have
ahead,
to do
Luciana.
is, yeah, what you have to do is when you go to the weculture.com, go and try to buy the book. And when you buy the book, you will have an option where you can put a code. So that's where you have to put ESQ Innovation, and that's how you will get it for free, no even shipping fees.
Thank you so much, Luciana. Again, we are so grateful for the time with you today. And we thank each and every one of our attendees. ASQ Innovation TC is here to serve each and every one of you. We welcome you to join our My ASQ Innovation TC community. There are ASQ insights on excellence that innovation contributes to. We would welcome your inquiry about how you may harness, use them, and or access them if you are not familiar with the phenomenal work that they are doing. If you are not an ASQ or ASQE member, we welcome you to join our organization. I'll be sending this deck out, and we will check with Luciana if she can share her deck, because we had at least one stakeholder really loving it and asking if you could share that, ma'am. And
Sure.
then we invite you to our next webinar events on 2/23 and 3/20 for our phenomenal speaker, Miss Julie Goswami, talking about fintech innovation in banking and insurance, and Dr. Kai Yang, innovation through the lens of quality 4.0. Again, we so offer appreciation to Luciana Paulis for just her phenomenal contributions to the innovation ecosystem, both as an author, a speaker, a coach, and a practitioner, and mostly for us, an advisor and a catalyst and change agent for all things innovation. So again, thank you so much for your contributions, your story, your journey, and sharing your wisdom with us today, Luciana. ASQ Innovation TC attendees, again, thank you for your attendance. We welcome you to attend our future events, and we look forward to connecting and collaborating with you in a future event. ASQ Innovation TC out for today. Have a great afternoon and weekend, and thanks again.